Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I take you through step-by-step process of painting cherry tomatoes using gouache. I'm doing a very beginner friendly video today, so join me with all your art supplies. Painting for me is meditative. I like to have a cozy setup with my ceramic palettes, my glass water cup, my brushes and my paint tube trays. I also light up a scented candle and have a cup of tea or coffee sometimes when I paint, and along with some jazz music in the background. What lifts your mood when you're painting? Let me know in the comment section over here. I'm using 300 GSM hot press water paper today, and the gouache that I'm using is by Brustro. You can use any other medium or any other art supply that you have with you. It could be a gouache of any other brand as well. The steps are the same and the process will be pretty similar. I'm speeding up the process video for you so it is easier for you to grasp the details in this way and help to learn and create your own painting. I have the reference image from Unsplash and I'm going to draw a very quick sketch of the cherry tomatoes and have some leaves around them. My sketch is very light as I prefer light sketches for my paintings even if it's gouache, as sometimes it does tend to show through the paint. If you've never heard of or used gouache, don't worry, today's tutorial would be a perfect start for you. You can use gouache in different ways. If you add a lot of water, it becomes a little translucent like watercolors, or you can use it in a creamy consistency. It does not have a shiny finish like acrylics, and at the same time you can do layer on top of layer. So it will still activate the base layer, so there's a lot of versatility which gouache provides you. Once the sketch is ready, it is time to pick out some colors. I normally try and experiment with each painting I make. Sometimes the gamble works and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't stop myself from experimenting because these gambles are what help us to create something unique. Today is one such day. I'm picking out some blues and a white to create the background. So I'm going to be mixing these together in a very creamy consistency for the background. If you want, you can create a very translucent layer. I want to try and add some odd color combinations today. My cherry tomatoes are in red, my leaves are in green, and I'm using a blue for the background. I have a feeling that it is going to fight a lot for attention. Yellow might be a better idea, but I want to really try this out today and see how it goes. Now, to understand whether the consistency of your mixture is good enough for a smooth flow on paper or not, it's a good idea to have like a swatch sheet next to you. So you can just apply a little bit of paint as you mix it on it, and you can see whether it's flowing well or if it requires more color or more water. So these are very useful hacks that you need to do. I like to use a round brush to paint the background as there is a lot of navigation around leaves that I need to do. So you can see there are a lot of tiny curves and corners that I need to navigate, which is quite easy for me to do with a round brush as compared to a flat brush. I am taking a risk here again by using this blue for the background against the red and green, but like I said before, I still want to give this a shot and see if this gamble works. Feel free to use any other background that you want for the this particular painting. Now, if your consistency is not very creamy, then you will notice that when you add your paint, there are a lot of lines of your brush strokes that are shown, and it is not very smooth as it is for me right now. So in that case, what you do is you add your first layer, let it completely dry, and then add a second layer on top of it. Now, once that layer dries, you will notice that it is a lot more smoother than it was with just layer 1. So if you still aren't happy with it, wait for it and add one more layer and you will notice that it's absolutely perfect. Now that the background is over, it's time to choose some greens. The issue I face with tube paints, especially with Brustro, is that the tubes are hard to open and sometimes the paints dry up inside. So I decided to cut the back part of this particular green to squeeze the paint out from the backside instead from the mouth, as it was just not coming out. I am mixing leaf green and the Brustro green over here to create a nice thick layer of color, and I'm also going to add some white to figure out different kinds of colors and different consistency. The process of mixing colors in gouache is very therapeutic for me. I really love this stage, and the creamy textures is very soothing for me to create. I'm going to be using this creamy layer of paint to use on top of the leaves. I'm going to add in a little bit of white into this mixture to create a little more creaminess. So now the reason for this is because I feel like the Brustro green is not as creamy as that I would like it to be even after mixing two different greens, which is why I decided to mix some white. I'm using the same color of green to paint all the three leaves, but if you want to, you can use all the different colors that you created in your palette. So each leaf can be a different color, and then you can use a contrasting color to add in some details on top of it. Now again over here, if you feel that the consistency is not good, then you add a second and a third layer. Let the leaves dry right now, and it's time to paint the cherry tomatoes. For this, I'm picking out scarlet and crimson, and I will mix them together to create a nice dark red. If you notice, I will not be adding any white to this because in Brustro, these colors are already pretty strong, and I want the cherry tomatoes to be really nice red, and I don't want it to be a little pastely. So if you add white, it will become like a pastely pinkish, or it will become a little bit like lighter version, and I don't want that. You will start noticing now that when I add the first layer of color, sometimes the base layer of the blue has come inside my drawing, which is why wherever the red overlaps the blue, a darker shade is seen over there. So in this case, you just wait for the red layer to completely dry, and then you add another layer of the same color over it. This will help to hide your darker shades below. I'm going to use some leaf green now to add on to those branches of the leaves, and then we will add some brown on top of it. Whenever you're making a painting, you don't have to follow the same thing which is there in your photograph, or that is a natural color of that particular object that you're creating. You can decide what you feel at the moment, and then you can choose colors on that basis. Now I'm going to add my second layer of red, and you will notice how magically all the darker shades of the red overlapping the blue completely disappear right now. This is because I also waited for my base layer to completely dry, and then I'm adding the second layer of red on top of it. Now to add details on top of my leaf, I'm going to use a contrasting color. So I had used a darker shade for the green leaf, so I'm using the lighter shade right now to add details over here. You can also go with a much darker shade, so you can either use the green color as it is, or you can mix a little bit of blue with it to go a little darker in terms of your shade and add details with that. With gouache, you'll notice that the lighter colors dry brighter and the darker colors dry a little duller. So make use of this and try and create some wonderful contrast. Now for brown, I don't want to use a burnt sienna, so I'm going to be using some mustard and mix it with this red to create like a dark brownish reddish color which is over here, and then I will use that on my brunch. Time to add some finishing touches. I'm going to mix some white and this red to create a lighter shade to add as highlight. Now when I'm mixing white with the red, you can see the very light pastel shade that it creates, and that's why I didn't want to use this directly on the cherry tomatoes. So going to be adding some green, a very light version of it on the branches, and I'm just going to give like a little bit of highlight before I remove the masking tape and be done with my painting. I really like how it has come. The background has been a big gamble. I know that there is a little bit of a fight that is happening in terms of the background and the foreground wanting attention. So feel free and use any other combination that you want. Every time you're painting, experiment with something new on that day, and you will notice that your art, your drawing, your painting skills will improve a lot. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. If you're new here, do consider subscribing to my channel and hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time I put up a new video. Bye bye.